Hello, this is Professor Nugent. Thank you for joining me on today's online class. This online class is replacing Wednesday, September 25th class because I will be out of town that day. So I figured I would pre-record today's class and then you could watch it at your convenience. And it's an important subject because I want to talk about the test that's coming up and I want to review. When is this test happening? Let me just double check this. You may not see a blank. I'm in Blackboard now. So the test dates are on the syllabus and the chapters that you need to cover. So I'm going to the syllabus and I'm going to just pull that out. Okay. And I'm not sure when the final is yet. A few students have asked me, but I will know more soon. Okay. So here is, let me just make that bigger. Okay. So test one is going to be Wednesday, October 2nd, and it's going to cover chapters 1, 4, and 5 from the online textbook. Okay. That will be a good question. Well, which textbook is that from? It's the test is going to come from the online textbook. Now, the Barron's Finance book is a supplemental book that, for this particular test, I'm not going to take any tricky direct material from that book and try to, supplant some kind of trickiness and then say it was from the Barron's book. I'm going to just really have you focus on that online textbook on finance. The Barron's book's a good supplement to help you understand some of the topics that we talk about in class and get a little bit more familiar with them. And I hope you've been finding it helpful. And the nice thing about the Barron's book is when you're doing the homework there, you have a reference of what the answers are, so it's not really too hard to get stuck. But okay, so how do you do well on the test? You know, how to get an A? Well, first, I would recommend rereading all the chapters. Now, don't cry about it. It's 3 chapters and they're pretty short, so it's not that big a deal to reread them. Okay? Now, in addition, you should also redo all the homeworks for a second time, and I'll have the answer key up for the second homework once it's submitted on. When is that second homework due? Second homework. Homework chapter 4 is due on Sunday. Okay, so on Monday, I will. This is Monday the 23rd, so you might be listening to this after the fact. But I'm gonna by Monday the 23rd, I'll have the keys to homework 4 open. So you could kind of see the answers to homework 4. Now, okay. And of course, you have to study. So rereading is not exactly rereading is not exactly studying. I mean, um, sorry, I'm just checking the grammar there. Doesn't like homeworks. Uh, so rereading is just to get you reacquainted with the material in case you forgot. To study, you're going to actually, that's a whole nother process where you open up the book, try to memorize and take notes on certain topics, and just drill them in your head and practice them until it's in there, until it sticks. I mean, you guys, you study a lot more than me, so you know how it's done. And let me tell you, people who failed the test last semester, their comments to me were, well, I just studied the PowerPoints. I thought that would be enough. I came to most classes. Missing classes definitely does hurt because I painstakingly take the time to show you how to do all this work. and then I repeat it and I reinforce it in class. So if you're missing class, you're missing, basically I'm helping you study as we go along because I'm introducing the idea, then I'm reinforcing it with a practice problem and then another practice problem, and then sometimes a third practice problem. So I'm really helping you do the study in class. So if you're missing class, you're missing out on study time and you're missing out on prep for the homework. A lot of times the homeworks are very similar, if not identical, to the handouts I give in class. So just keep that in mind. So you want to reinforce and remember the material. All right. So let's get to now. Let's get to some subjects, some specific subjects that are on the exam. Now let me just tell you, if you can't see what I'm writing, take YouTube and there's a little box in the corner where you can make it full screen. So that way it'll be a lot easier for you to read what I'm writing here. I have it on a very big font. Okay, so here are some of the subjects that I'm going to go over. Now I'm actually looking, you don't see on the other side of my monitor, I have the test open. So I'm actually going to be reading the questions and pulling the material out directly from the questions of the test. So I see right here, there's a question on limited partners. And these are types of business organizations. So I have limited partners. We have sole. Oh, I can't spell that word too easily. I could, thank God bless spell check. Okay, so those are the three big limited partnerships. And I guess I could. It's also partnerships, just plain partnerships that aren't limited. So there's partnerships, limited partnerships, sole proprietor, and corporations. I think they also talked about, maybe they talked about S corp or limited liability corporation (LLC). So those categories. There's going to be a few questions on the differences of those types of businesses. So you should be familiar with the advantages and disadvantages and how those all lay out. All right. So let's see. All right, what else do we got here? There are questions on cash flow. And these are more on the concept of cash flow. Let's see. We have a question here on agent from chapter 1, in case you forgot that. So I'm scrolling up here. Let's see. Oop, here's another. I see a question specifically on, I think this is the way the book puts it, general partnerships. Just make a specification on that. All right, what else we got here? I'm actually going to give you a direct question from the test. So this is a bonus direct question. Which of the following is least related to the valuation of a firm stock? And since grammar is our friend, let's try to get this right. Okay. So that's an actual question from the test. Which of the following? I'm not going to give you the four answers to it, but this is something you should look up in the book and try and answer that. Okay. You should know who the stakeholders are. And remember, we talked a lot about profit maximization, so be familiar with that and why it's important to a company. Who is also should know who imposes outside constraints on a firm. Yes, question mark. Grammar is our friend. Okay. Let's see. What else we got? How do you increase margins? How do you increase profit margins? That's sort of a question. Okay. You should know, there's a question here on liability and asset accounts. So you should know, if I say accounts receivable, you should know whether that's a liability or an asset. And we covered these accounts in the cash flow, and they're also in the balance sheet. So you should know, at least know the differences between a liability and asset account. I mean, come on now. It's simple stuff. Okay. Ooh, another question about a corporation. Okay. Now, let's see, there are going to be questions here about the cash flow statement, the income statement, and the balance sheet. Now, I could have you possibly construct a cash flow statement or an income statement, but I would not have you on the tests make a balance sheet or figure out how to create a balance sheet. But since we went over, because we really didn't go over that in class, but we did go over income statements quite extensively and cash flow statements. So those could be two big centers for the test. Now, speaking of the cash flow statement, there on the cash flow statement, you know, because of the limited time of the test, I may not have you do the whole complete statement, but I may give you a part of it to complete. That's maybe. I haven't really even decided what problem to put in a test. I'm just so it could be most likely it's going to be either the income statement or cash flow, and they're going to be built into the test as well. Even when we're talking the balance sheet, I'm not going to have you have a big problem in the balance sheet, but I may ask you about specific elements that are important, like retained earnings. Now, retained earnings is something that's involves the income statement and balance sheet, but specifically the balance sheet, because in the income statement, net profits can either be dividends or retained earnings. So if it's going to be retained earnings, they come over to the balance sheet usually in the form of cash, and on the asset side, and retained earnings on the equity side, so the balance sheet balances. So you should be familiar. I would get familiar with retained earnings. And so with the accounting elements from Chapter 4, the cash flow, income statement, and balance sheet, I'm expecting you to know the concepts of these financial statements. So why they're important, what they show, and some of the basic accounts that are on them. Such as I may ask you questions about, what is this account a current asset? So you should know current assets, or the difference between current assets and long-term assets. All right. which I do remember talking about in class. Now we also are covering Chapter 5, which I'll be done with on Monday. And in Chapter 5, um, there are a lot of ratios. So periodically I'm going to write down some ratios as I see them that are going to make up some elements of the test. So here we have debt ratio, return on equity. It's a question on preferred stock. Oops. Corrected. Don't be hating on my grammar. All right. Okay, so let's keep going. Here's some questions on common equity. Common equity accounts. What accounts on the balance sheet make up common equity accounts? We covered taxes too, so I may have some questions about progressive tax rate system and marginal and average tax. And I may even have you calculate taxes like we did in class. Not sure, I can't really tell you for 100%, but that could happen. We also talked about depreciation and the modified accelerated cost recovery schedule or system, depending on who's writing it. All right. That came out. Okay. So there's a few questions on depreciation. Oh, here's a question on current ratio. Debt to equity ratio. Drop the E. Debt to assets ratio. These are all specific questions on the test. And the questions may be asking you to simply calculate it. Or the questions may be about something about the ratio. Oh, and I should mention too, which I'm going to mention in class, of course, but here I'm going to specifically mention that I am such an awesome professor that I'm going to let you bring a cheat sheet to class for the test. So you can write down on one sheet of paper. I have to say this. You're going to think this is funny, but 8 1/2 by 11 size. Because one time, this kid, oh God, he brought a poster size in, and he said, "Well, you said one sheet." And my God, that was horrible. So you can bring in one piece of paper as a cheat sheet. One sheet of paper from 8 1/2. The size should be 8 1/2 11, standard size that you use for the photocopier or your printer at home. And you could write down anything you want on this sheet of paper. Just whatever you want. If you want to write out whole problems, if you want to copy sections of the textbook, it must be typed or in your own handwriting. What I don't want you to do is try to cut and paste from the textbook or from a problem. You must be typed up or in your own handwriting. So this is very exciting news for people who are afraid that they may not be able to memorize so easily. Everything is a lot of material in these chapters. So I'm going to bold this and underline it so you know how important it is. So I'll let you bring a cheat sheet, and you could write down all the ratios on there. You could, whatever you want to fit on that one page, you could write down. But don't let that give you a false sense of security. You still need to study, because a lot of my questions are going to be about the comprehension of the material, and that's something that you can't always write down easily. Something you have to know in your brain. Okay, times interest earn ratio, question on that. Average collection period. Inventory turnover. All right. Okay. Oh, even more ratios I'm going to test on. And remember, these could either be calculations, or these could be, or these could simply be questions about, how to calculate it. Let's see. Okay, so here are a couple other ratios that are on the exam. Okay, so, okay, let's move up. All right, so test one, let's go over a couple of specifics, because I think there are some questions students usually have. It's going to be a 40 multiple choice questions and one problem that will be similar to the class work. So we're going to have 40 multiple choice questions and one problem. That problem is basically going to pick one of the class works that we did in class and an element of one of the classworks we did in class. And I'm going to give that to you as a problem on a test. So I would also review all the classworks and check that out and maybe make sure you understand them. Okay, so let's switch over to Blackboard. Okay, so we're over here in Blackboard, and I just want to let people know that if you go to course documents, all the classwork handouts are backed up here with answer keys that we did in class. Also in course documents, I have these spreadsheet templates that you should be using to help you do the homework. So the templates have some select problems. So say you're working on Chapter 5 homework and you're working on question 5.1, and you click on the spreadsheet. And what you get is a template that's already has a lot of the work. This is actually problem 535. A lot of the work already done for you, laid out for you to work on. Now, I may not, because I rotate the problems for each homework. They may not actually. I may not have that particular problem for this week. So sometimes you may find under those spreadsheet templates, it may be a problem that I haven't assigned because I do rotate the questions. So sometimes you may. So don't be confused. It doesn't mean you have to do it. It's just there in case that particular year I decide to use that template. Homework answer keys. I have answer key 1 already open. Answer key 4 will be open soon, so that way when you're redoing the homeworks, you get an idea of what you got wrong on them. Okay, and let's see. In announcements, I will post the the link to this test review, which you already have if you're watching it, under homework. And okay, I'm back. I paused it for a second. I created the announcement, no class, Wednesday, September 25th. And soon I'll post a link to this YouTube video for you to watch here. And also remember that I have 2 TAs and their email addresses are here. So while I'm out of the country, I may not be able to answer your email questions. So you're free to ask Jay or Jake, or if you need if you want to make a special appointment to work with them during in lieu of office hours. You can, if you can't make their office hours, and most likely Jake will not be able to hold his office hours on Wednesday because he usually holds them in my office. You can kind of contact him and make a separate appointment if you need some extra help studying for this exam. They both are pretty helpful. Okay, so that's it. So we have our test review, and we're all set. So I will see you on Monday. And on Monday, I can answer any other questions you may have about the exam, and then we'll have the exam on Wednesday, October 2nd. Okay, take care.